Good Company podcast. Rick, Matt, and Lars with our special guest, Clay Dyer, the native of Hamilton, Alabama, now living in beautiful Fayetteville, Tennessee. Is that correct?
That is correct,
I've got my things. How you doing? That Fayetteville's just north of Huntsville, right? Beautiful
Yes, sir.
place. You liking it up there?
We do, man. We're very blessed. My beautiful wife and I, we've been there. I've been there going on 13 years. She's been there her whole life, and we're blessed to have 4 incredible grandchildren, and we love it, man. It's I tell people I may live in Tennessee, but my team's still in Alabama. Roll Tide.
And
so
yeah, there you go. Roll Tide.
Need it right now.
Well, lately, yeah, they need it. No, that's another podcast. But just to give our viewers and listeners a background, pro bass angler, a guy who has overcome great odds, a man who continues to amaze me. Give me the background of your story, or us the background of your story, as far as you were born without limbs.
Yes,
and
sir.
You told me last summer about trying prostheses down through the years, and you kind of threw those away and just went with what you got. And, tell me how that evolved and how that all went.
Well, I'm very blessed to the Hamilton, Alabama, the little small hometown where I grew up at. Blessed to have a great family, parents, grandparents, one brother. Realized early on that I was born unique, and I like to say unique. The culture, a lot of times we live in today, wants to call it handicapped or disabled, but I threw those out the window a long time ago. And I say that with complete humility. It's all about the attitude and what you take. In my, for my philosophy, I've taken what a lot of people, would consider lemons, and I've just tried to make lemonade through my faith. And, but wonderful family, wonderful hometown. But knew I was different from looking at other kids about the age of 4. But even at, that young age, I also realized that, I could either whine and complain and make excuses, or, I could take the bull by the horns, take life by the horns, and, use my faith and, say, you know what, we're going to go out here and we're going to show people that you can do anything you set your mind to when you have the faith and you believe, and we're going to go out here and we're going to try to make a difference, in this world, a positive difference, one person at a time. So been super blessed to despite what may look like a handicap to some people, I've never let that slow me down. I played sports, growing up. I've always been a big fanatic of football, baseball, basketball. Loved all those sports, but then also loved the outdoors. I've always, growing up in a small country town, I've always loved hunting and fishing. And like many kids, we'll fast forward, several years in teenage years. Like many kids, I dreamed of being a pro athlete, and knowing that the chances of, in an MLB team or NBA team drafting me were not real good.
Yeah,
but
the Lakers were not going to be calling.
No, the Lakers were not. Now, NFL, because when I tackled you and I put my helmet, around your waist or in your kneecap, you were going to the ground. But I knew I'd get flagged for that. So, but I really felt like that fishing was an avenue that I could take where nobody could keep me from getting to the top level. Right. So I've been blessed now to have that career really since I started on the state level in 96 and have, not looked back. So.
Interesting.
I've been so looking forward to talking to you just about your life story, but also just about fishing. I have so many questions about fishing, but let's just go back to the beginning. Do you remember when you first cast a rod?
Oh, yeah.
And how you were able to manipulate it? Was it somebody who helped you, or did it just come natural? And if you could even just show the audience sort of how you do it.
I think we got some pictures we'll pop up here in a second, too.
Yeah, and it's funny that you brought that up, because when Rick came up and we did a story a couple of years ago, I like to say it like this. I remember doing all that. I remember watching, I would watch other people do it, and I would go get the equipment and figure out what was comfortable on me. And then took that and tried to run with it and perfect it and be more and more efficient, especially now that, it's part of my career. And but my mom and dad always said, that since I was, they had 2 children, myself and my brother, and considering my brother was what most people consider normal with the extremities and all those things, nobody could teach me really how to do it so much as far as holding the rod and doing those things because nobody was like me. So basically I went and got it just like I did a football or a basketball or a baseball bat. And I said, okay, what feels right for me? And so it was still a whole lot of trial and error, and figured out, okay, that doesn't work. Throw that out the window. Okay, this works. Let's run with it, but I can remember throwing those very first rods and reels and, having a whole, saving my allowance and getting me a good stash of them. Mm-hmm. And then when you go to realize you want to take that step in tournament fishing, it's funny as a kid how you think, okay, these rods and reels aren't good enough anymore when they technically were. But I can remember that and can remember, getting that start. And to this day, sometimes I sit back and my wife, as we were unpacking the garage the other day, still going through stuff, trying to unpack boxes from moving in our home we built finished up this year. My wife happened to pull out a jersey, and it was one of my very first jerseys I had way back when I started. And I said, man, that brings back some memories. And funny thing is, I looked on that jersey, and just like Skeeter Boats and Yamaha, they're still with me today, along with many, many more of them. And I looked at that jersey, and I just went down memory lane, really quick. And it's amazing to look back and remember that I had parents that loved me enough that when they knew what I wanted to do, they were willing to sign waivers of release because I was, under age of 18 to fish the Alabama Federation circuit. And they gave me the Federation BASS gave me that, opportunity to get started.
Just one quick follow-up.
Yeah, sure.
When I told my parents I wanted to be a writer for Sports Illustrated, big roll of the eyes, right? I assume when you told your parents, I want to be a professional fisherman, what was that met with?
It was really a blessing in disguise. My dad used to have this he would say a joke, but he was being serious. My brother always wanted to be a professional golfer, and he actually played on the Teardrop Tour, which is right along with the Nike Tour. Mm-hmm. So he used to tell people, he said, well, I've got one son wanting to be a pro golfer, one wanting to be a pro fisherman, and my wife wants to be a professional teacher because my mom was a professor at Alabama. So Dad always kind of had this thing, him and Mom both, where Dad grew up in the outdoors like my mom did, but Dad never was a bass fisherman. He was a cat fisherman on Duck River and the Tennessee River doing traps. So Dad always kind of felt bad because he felt like he didn't have the knowledge, where a lot of times you'll see a father-son, maybe the father being very successful and the son coming along in the footsteps. He knew a lot more about golf than he did fishing. So he always kind of felt like he didn't have that in fishing to hand off to me. But it's like I told him, I said, him and Mom, I said, look, what y'all have got to contribute to my career is more important than any amount of money or anything. It's, back before I drove, they made sure I got there. They made sure I had the boat. They made sure I had what I needed. And that's what mattered.
Parental support.
You've been very, very successful. Last publication I read was 20 plus victories. How many do you have, and what was it like to win that first one?
I remember winning that first one like it was yesterday, and good Lord, that's been in 94. It was a local club tournament, but we had some what we call in fishing hammers in that club. We had several guys that, to be honest, if they would have ever taken that opportunity, they could have no doubt been full-time professionals and been very successful. But I do remember that. I've been blessed. I haven't won one in a while. I need to get off my rear end and get it done.
This is going to jumpstart you, I feel.
So this is going to be it.
It needs to.
Where was it? What lake?
It was actually on the Tennessee Tom Bigby Waterway, a little pool called, it's actually called the Smithville Pool. But I remember it was about 28 degrees, and it was sleeting and raining and all that mess with about a 30-mile-an-hour wind blowing. It was nasty that day.
What was your weigh-in?
What I weigh in?
Yeah.
I had 5 giants that weighed like 10 pounds or something. They were all about 2 pounds apiece. They weren't big ones, but I'll tell you.
It was enough.
It was enough,
Yeah,
yes.
there you go. Yeah. I have to apologize. I want to make an edit right here. because of this. You got your truck with you outside?
It's outside.
You got a fishing pole in there?
I don't have a fishing pole.
Oh, I should have brought one.
Well, I
I
didn't
wanted
think
you
about
to. I thought of you showing us how you put it under your chin and get, you know.
Right.
But I thought if you had a
Can
pole.
we pull some of the YouTube videos? I mean, there's
Oh, yeah.
I'll just pull a
Okay.
video of him doing it.
Okay, and when we describe. Okay, so
Yeah.
The photos that she's sending me now, I'm just going to cut them in.
gotcha.
you know,
Okay.
When y'all were talking.
But that's my fault. That's good. You know, in TV, it's always good to have they call show and tell.
Right.
Have something on set to show and tell.
Right.
And I didn't think of it. Okay, here we go. Let's pick it back up. You okay?
Yeah, I'm
okay,
good.
here we go. Still rolling. Here we go. Okay. So tell us how you do it. You got the fishing pole under your chin. You use this part of what you have here
Right.
to direct it.
Right.
And then when that fish comes in, and I was on the boat with them a summer or two ago. It's amazing. I mean, he reels the fish in. He's wrestling with a bass on the deck of his boat.
He ties his
he's,
lure.
he's tying his lures with his tongue. You're holding the bass up with your mouth. It is the most amazing thing, and we're going to show it to you here that I had ever seen. Just kind of go through this process with us and how you do it.
Oh yeah, in answering that, I want to back up just a bit and say that when I was trying to get on the pro tour, one of the big things I had about me was I did not want anybody to say, okay, he's able to fish the pro tour because he has this special equipment or this special adaptation. So I took and learned, and like currently I'm with St. Croix rods and 7 reels, and it was really big for me to be able to say, look, I can take the same rods and reels that you buy off the tackle room store, off the shelf, and I'm able to use them with no special adaptations. So I take the rod, basically clamp it on my left side between my jawbone and my collarbone, and then I use my chin and kind of bottom lip in combination to mash the button on the bait cast reel, and then I use my bottom lip to feather the line on the spool. Of course, I put my arm up under the rod, and I twist my body or bend it and contort it, whatever angle and however I need to do to make the cast where I want to make it. Whereas whether I'm launching a bait for, say, 50 yards, I throw it a little differently than what I do if I'm trying to skip a bait up under a dock or a treetop. But that's how I do it. I feather the line with my lip on a bait caster and on the spinning rod. Basically, I take and put it under the right side, and to make the cast, I'll flip the bail down with my arm, and then I'll actually put the line over my thumb and just come straight up, and pinch it on this side and come straight up and cast it to release it or side arm it. And then to reel it in, I've actually figured out, this sounds crazy, but I figured out over the years the best, most efficient way to actually stick the butt of the rod in my mouth and hold it with my teeth and then reel it, just like a normal reel.
It's
And
amazing.
I had a guy tell me on one of the videos, he was like, dude, how do you not have all your teeth jerked out? Or I'm
Right.
like, I got some strong jaws.
Yeah, it's just it's amazing to see, and then you get a bass up on the deck, and you get that hook out of there and get it in the live well, or decide to throw it back, and it's just an amazing.
How do you get the hook out?
It really depends on what I've got him on. If he's on like a single hook, say like a jig or a plastic worm, most of the time I'll get the fish up against me and I'll take the end of my arm and just punch the hook out. If I need to, I'll take needle nose pliers in my mouth and get a little hook and pop it out like that. If he's on like a spro crankbait, where it's got multiple hooks, or a topwater with treble hooks, I will take those pliers in my mouth. And that way, when I grab the hook, I can keep him a safe distance to keep him from flouncing and getting the hook in me. I've had a few times where when I first got them in the boat and they were trying to, flop and get away from me, that I pretty much have to kind of dive on them, and I risk getting some hooks in me. But hey, part of the job.
It's just, I mean, and you've probably been cut and sliced and beat up pretty good down through the years.
Have you had a bad injury in your mouth? Or?
It's funny that you said that. Actually 2 years ago, I was in a national tournament at one of our Bassmaster Opens, and I was in a hurry trying to put a new jig trailer on because I just caught one. And I was putting a trailer on my jig, and I had the jig and I had the hook point in my mouth as I'm threading the bait around the bend of the hook. And when I did, the jig slipped just a little bit with the hook point actually went in behind my bottom row of teeth into my gum. That didn't feel too good. So I got it out as quick as I could and got it on rigged up. But yes.
So the fish hooked clay.
No, actually, Clay hooked Clay.
But any of the pro bass anglers, I talk to Randy Howell or Swindle or any of these guys, they will insist to anybody that Clay Dyer is one of the most talented fishermen in the world. And there's so much to it, water temperatures and locations and what you're using and what you've got rigged and, the whole thing.
Yeah, what you got up here.
And what
honestly,
you got up here.
that's where I would love
real.
to go next is what makes a good fisherman?
That's a tough one. I tell people I had this kind of come up in my mind about 6 months ago, and I tell people, I say, I've got the professional fishing part figured out. Now I got to get the professional catching part figured out.
That's a good line.
It's in all the years I've done this, and I was very blessed at the beginning of my career to have some of the best that's ever done it. Jay Ellis, Kevin Van Dam. Some of the best. Now, our son, Brandon Lester, he's one of the most consistent pros on the top level. And, but, starting out to have some of the best pros to basically take me under their wing. Larry Nixon, he's one of the all-time money winners.
Yes.
Larry and I were on several pro teams together. And for them to take me under and teach me not just, how to break a lake down, how to figure out a pattern quicker, but what they really taught me was how, as a man, as a person, how to, handle the business side of fishing, which has changed so much, and since I started, how to handle, getting the exposure for sponsors and partners and all that. And, but, as far as to me, what sets apart the greatest versus the, maybe the up and comers, you can see so much now via the internet, via social media. There is no substitute, regardless of what anybody might tell you. There's no substitute. I mean, you can sit there and watch videos all you want to, but that video doesn't show you the weather condition. That video doesn't show you necessarily the water conditions you're facing. So time on the water and experience in all the different conditions. And I like to joke and tell folks, which I'm serious. A friend of mine gave me a book when I first started called Bass Fishing 101. And it was supposed to be the nuts and bolts, the biscuits and gravy, if you will, of the basics of fishing. Well, I can tell you if the bass read that book, they didn't comprehend it because nothing in that book that they ever tried worked, But fish are so much like other animals, deer, wildlife. It's funny, my wife's with me today, that me and her will be going somewhere, and if she sees cattle or livestock up feeding, she'll say, baby, the fish are biting. The livestock's feeding, and there's a lot to that.
What? Hold on.
Absolutely.
Is that just a like?
like when the cows are standing
is that
up,
a
it's
is
sunny
that
and-
is that a
and
myth or is that
right.
actually a real
that's
thing?
spot on, dude. I'll
So
tell
if
you.
the cows are eating, the fish are biting.
If you go in, and I've seen this, if I hadn't have seen this kind of happen to me time and time again, I would question it. But I will really pay attention when I'm driving to the lake early in the morning. I'll pay attention to livestock, to horses, to dogs, all that kind of stuff, deer. And if you see livestock and stuff up eating, majority of the time, if you stop where they are, if you're in an area where there's bass, those fish will be eating. And I will tell you in my years that regardless of how cold or how hot it is, the first hour of daylight, if you're around them, they're biting. It don't matter if it's 20 degrees and spit and sleet, they're biting.
So that is the best time of day to fish. First hour of daylight.
It is one of the best times. You can look at all the lunar charts and all that, solar tables, and during certain times of the moon phases, there's different what we like to refer to, or what I like to refer to doing seminars, is feeding windows or bite windows. Sometimes it's the first hour, then you may have or 2 hours, then you may have a couple hour lull, and it may be right in the middle of the day, and it may be right in the middle of the afternoon. A lot of it's got to do with moon phase and stuff like that.
Are there other tells once you get on the water?
Oh,
that
yeah.
you can share with us?
Oh, yeah. Fishing, and it's one thing I love so much about it. Football, for instance, or any other sport, you've got coaches that study film. They see what tendencies are, and they call plays to try to go against those tendencies to give the best chance for success. In fishing, when I'm getting there, my mind is constantly going, okay, I feel the pressure, the barometric pressure is dropping. And for instance, and anytime that pressure is changing, whether it's dropping or rising, but especially when it's dropping, we have an old adage. We say they're chewing somewhere. If you're not catching them, you're not on them. You know, so there is a lot of variables when you're looking at the weather, the wind, post-frontal, pre-frontal, water temperature, the time of year. There's a lot of factors and it's like veterans of any sport. You know, when they've seen, maybe when pitchers have seen all these big-time batters and they know what's their strengths, what their weaknesses are, that's what they target. Well, like in fishing, I can put on whatever I need to catch them, but I've got certain things that I feel like are in my wheelhouse. As my wife will tell you, when conditions set up for those certain things,
Right.
I'm like a pit bull drilling on a ribeye. I mean, I'm ready to get my St. Croix rod and my Buckeye jig, and I'm ready to knock one out.
It's like
Sound
time
a
of
NASCAR guy.
Yeah, it's like time of day too. I mean, I do a little fishing up north at Lake Champlain, some Dream Lake down south too, and I tell you, you hear all sorts of stuff. Like, you know, at night they're going to come into the warmer water, so they're going to, you know, and you're going to get them then. Or the one I like is catching one fish is luck. Catching two fish in a row is a pattern. So you want right. So you want to stay there, okay? A funny thing for me, just personally, to relate to what you're talking about, I fish up Lake Champlain, which is a lake between New York and Vermont. Great bass fishing lake. They have a lot of tournaments.
I love Lake Champlain.
So I'll go out at night just because I'm lazy. I don't want to get up at 4 a.m. You know, so I'll go at night when the sun's setting. But it's funny. I'll go out at 6 o'clock and get nothing, and from like 8:10 to 8:30, I'll kill it. And then like after 8:35, I still got a half hour light. I don't get anything. I mean, so back to what you're saying, it's just these windows of time where you can find these bass, and you've got to know as a fisherman when you find them, I guess.
You do. There's a lot like that. There's also a thing where fish are, the best way I know to describe it, we're like humans, maybe we're opportunistic. Yeah, we've got breakfast, lunch, and dinner in most cases.
Right.
You know, if you're somewhere going down the road like we were coming down here, and all of a sudden you think, man, I could use a snack. Well, if you walk in that, you know, convenience store and there sits a Snicker bar right there, you know, if you're a Snicker bar lover, oh, that Snicker looks good, I think I'll just eat it, you know. Bass are the same way. They're a lot of times they might have just ate, or, you know, they've eaten that morning, but like if you make your bait come across them, it looks so natural. Most of the time, if it's easy, they're going to get it. You know?
In the same line of what Rick was saying about a personal question, I have a 10-year-old son, Lincoln. Mm-hmm. He loves to fish.
Awesome.
However, he hasn't caught many fish. So let's say you're on the dock with Lincoln. What do you tell him?
I tell Lincoln and any kid out there, to me, I operate, and I have found this to be true year after year after year. I operate on a KISS. I call it the KISS system, and excuse my bluntness, but I call it keep it simple, stupid. Fish have the brain the size of a peanut, and like other animals, they react to nature. With a kid, yes, if you have things like grass and vegetation in the pond, it's harder to fish some baits than it is others to keep it weedless. But for kids, if they get in a boat with me their first time, I'm either going to rig them up. More times than not, I'm going to rig them up what we call a wacky rig, which is like a stick worm, like a Zoom's Linky or a Yamamoto Senko. They've been around forever. And I'm going to rig it up wacky style, which is hooking it right in the middle through the egg sac. And when it falls very slowly, and it's got a very natural look, just like a big giant earthworm falling. Or I'm going to put them on, which is one of my wife's favorite baits, a shaky head, which is just a simple little lead head with a hook in it, and put like a Zoom green pumpkin trick worm. There is not a month in the year that you can't go right up the road here to Smith Lake,
Right.
put on a green pumpkin green Zoom trick worm on a green pumpkin 8th ounce shaky head, And if you keep it in your hand in enough brush piles or enough rocky points, you're going to catch a spotted bass.
But I think that the key to Lincoln would be slow. I mean, you've got to right.
Yes,
You've got to take
yes.
that, and I don't have the patience to do that. So I just want to throw that Rapala out there and crank it in.
This is crazy.
But-
but should he use a bobber?
Well,
Yeah.
for bass, the only time I would use a bobber is if he's live minnow, like using a live minnow on the end of it,
Okay.
possibly.
Worms.
But I'll tell you, with live bait fishing, I honestly like what I call freestyle it, which basically put the hook on, put the minnow on, maybe put a tiny split shot on it. But just throw it out there, leave your bellow out, let the minnow be active doing its thing.
How do you hook a minnow?
How do I hook them? I try not to put them in my mouth like I do my other baits.
Well, I thought you would have to put it in your
well,
mouth.
yeah.
How do you put it on the hook? Yeah.
Actually, if I'm doing it, what I'll do usually is I'll kind of pin him between my arm and the boat carpet. Then I'll put the hook in my mouth or in the pliers where I can see where I'm going with the point. And I put in some minnows. I'll hook them through the bottom lip and come out between the nostrils. You want to try your best not to come through the brain or the head because you'll kill them instantly or in a few minutes. Or this sounds kind of gruesome and cruel, but sometimes if you actually hook them through one eye socket and come out the other one, it will blind them, but they will actually stay alive. For that's the two ways to hook them to get the most life out of them.
Wow. Well, I got a question, and Kim, come on, you're up. Come on, let's go. Where'd you meet your wife? And what attracted Kim to you? And Kim, you're going to take my place up here. We're going to keep rolling on this podcast. You guys are in charge for 10 minutes. Okay.
All right.
So come on, Kim.
Not a problem.
This is Kim Dyer, ladies and gentlemen. Go for it.
Hey, Kim.
Hey,
Thank you for driving down
Yeah.
from Fayetteville,
you're
Tennessee.
so welcome.
Thanks for
Did I
joining
say
us.
it right? Fayetteville?
You did.
Okay,
Fayetteville.
good. Well, I grew up in Huntsville. I better say it right. But
Fayetteville.
tell us a little bit how y'all met and what an amazing fellow this is. And then we could go on and on and on.
I need to pay her a little bit. before you do that.
I joke about it, but I tell people it was that deep, sexy voice. So
That's horse
That was
right
it.
there.
Nice.
no, it was all God. I was in a very successful career. Clay was the same way. Had over 20 years probably of banking at the time behind me and was successful in that, and then got into real estate. And due to things in life that will happen, divorce, I wore costume jewelry and kind of kept men at bay and said, I have my career and I have my children and I can be good with that and the good Lord's blessing. So life's good. And I went to a bass tournament.
And okay, so first date, how did it go?
Well, the first date wasn't at the bass tournament. This rocked on about 9 months. He finally decides to ask me out. He said, I knew I could get a yes or no. So I
Were you guys just talking over the phone?
We're talking over the phone.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. You know those 1, 2 in the morning phone calls.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Those are good.
yeah.
That shows
yeah.
good signs.
Yeah. It was a good sign. So he asked me to come and stay the weekend at his parents' home, his grandparents' home. And so we worked that all out, and that's a story he tells sometime. But our first date was at a freezing cold ball game. Nobody expected temperatures to fall like that night. So one of his coach friends got me a jacket, and wrapped me up in it, and we had hot chocolate and snuggled, and we tell people the rest was history. We were
amazing.
inseparable
Great
after that.
Who
So
was
Clay.
Clay?
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
remember?
Well, oh yeah. What was funny? I'm trying to tell her. At the time, I coached. I was an assistant high school coach for 12 years, and we were scouting a team called Colbert County in North Alabama, which was kind of halfway between Fayetteville and Hamilton. And when I told her we were coming up there, honey, I'll just come meet you at the game's what she said. And I'm like, honey, it's gonna be cold. It's gonna be wet. You're gonna be miserable. Let's just come down. No, I want to come meet you at the game. So, where ordinarily you would think I would take her out for a nice steak dinner, or grilled chicken or something like that. We had a Wendy's #3 for supper on the way home that night.
You're on high school football. I got to ask you this because you're from Hamilton and I'm old school. Is Gary Hollingsworth, I know he was a few years older than you, but he's a very storied Alabama quarterback, and I think Craig Sanderson was a player.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know those guys growing up, and did that have a part with you yelling Roll Tide at the very beginning of Good Company?
Absolutely. Gary and Craig both was personal friends of mine. My mom actually babysitted Craig when he was younger. And Gary and I knew them all and was avid fans. It's funny that you asked that because when they both went to Alabama, I can't remember exactly the year. It might have been 90 or 89 somewhere. I was a little kid. And Mom and Dad had carried me to Legion Field I believe it was a Tennessee game.
Oh, wow.
And Alabama was, I believe, either getting beat or it was real close. And one of the grad assistants or whatever is when Bill Curry was coach. And one of the grad assistants or assistant coaches came up, found out where we were sitting, and asked Dad, could I come to the locker room? So they load me up. We go get in my chair and we go to the locker room. And I very vividly remember Coach Curry saying, if y'all can go out here in the second half and y'all can come up with a good reason and tell this young man why you can't get your rear ends in gear and beat this team, he said, and lo and behold, Alabama out there and just smashed them in the second half.
They inserted Gary Hollingsworth, and he absolutely went off on Tennessee. I was there. What a great story. I'm glad I asked.
Yeah. And you know what was crazy after the game? We were all down there at the tunnel waiting on them to come out. Well, Gary and Craig came out and told my dad, said, Clay's going in the locker room with us. And they carried him in the locker room, and one of the Birmingham news stations, or all of them, were interviewing him, and I was sitting between Gary and Craig. And I came out of the locker room, and Dad said, what you been doing? I said, doing TV interviews. And, and at the time, I was like 8 years old. Dad looks at me like, yeah, right. Tell me another one. And then lo and behold, that night, Daddy was like, oh, you weren't lying. You really were on the news, weren't you?
I think you need I think he needs to go to Bama right now and do a motivational
he needs to
speech.
be in the locker room whenever he played. But
if I go down there and my blood pressure, I may have to get on my blood pressure medicine right now.
BP meds, honey. So.
Okay, so were you familiar with professional fishing when you met?
Honey. Hank Parker was in my living room I mean, every probably Saturday, back then VHS tape you could get your hand on with him or Bill Dance, because my son was like Brandon. I call it being bitten by the bug. You either have a love of fishing or you love fishing, and there is a difference. And they were both bitten. So, and that's how I met Clay, is my son had just started on the Bassmaster Opens. And so Clay happened to be there, and somebody said, well, my daughter said, that's Clay Dyer. I said, who's Clay Dyer?
That's what I laugh about.
Do you travel with him all the time? And
most all the time. We are very blessed. And I just went back, I stepped away from a successful career because we had to make that decision. Do I stay in banking and in real estate, or after we were engaged, honey, I want you to come on the road with me.
I messed it all up.
No,
Whoa.
I did
How did you propose? How'd you propose?
Oh, it was awesome. But it wasn't either.
Well, I had taken her ring, the engagement ring, and I put it, believe it or not, in a tackle bag in a boat. We were on the lake, and I knew she loved a shaky head, so I had her a shaky head tied on. And I said, what plastic do you want on it? And she goes, well, give me my green pumpkin, and like I like to throw. So I was going to rig it up for her. And so I get down there and I get the ring and I get it balanced on my arm, and I turned around and I did my version of going down on one knee. Well, she turns around, and before I can get my speech I had prepared, she turns around, and when I asked her, she said, yes, honey, of course, yes. And I was like, I didn't even get to tell you what I want to tell you.
I let him finish later. But what do you do when you get up at 4:30 in the morning to go fish? For girls,
honestly,
women.
One of the greatest proposal stories ever.
Hair in a ponytail, ball cap, the whole no makeup thing, any of that. And it was hot. And I, of course, wanted to post a picture of it on Facebook, social media. And And Clay said, "You look great." And I'm like, "I don't even care," because we were engaged at that point. So, but yeah, it was great.
Hey, Ricky, come on up here and finish this thing out.
One thing that I would love for her to be able to share that Rick kind of knows about it. Well, actually, he knows a lot about it because he's been up there when we started it. But the vision that we had for our foundation, for our nonprofit, that has just really taken off. And
Awesome.
That one right there, she wears many hats and she wears them extremely well. And
we'll definitely we'll transition into that. I would love to ask you guys just sort of the dynamics of how a tournament works.
Oh, yeah.
Right. All right, we rolling?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, I've always been impressed with you. When I fished with him this guy, he backs his pickup truck, puts the boat in, climbs up on the boat. I mean, he does everything. You don't have people doing this for him, So that whole process is so impressive. But your ministry is what is very special to you. You've always had no problems professing your faith and your love of Jesus, and you've traveled the country, and watching some of these speeches that he makes, these testimonies he does are pretty amazing. And I guess the question would be, between fishing and now ministering, what's that dynamic like? How often do you go on the road to spread the word, and how often do you fish? I mean, it seems like you're preaching more than you're fishing.
Well, we are, but you actually, at a lot of the tournaments, it goes hand in hand.
I see you do. Okay.
We're doing right now. I'd have to go back and count, but on average per year, it's somewhere between, I would say, probably roughly 65 to maybe 80 engagements. We're usually somewhere or multiple places per week.
Wow.
Like in the morning, we'll be headed to Indiana for the next till Sunday. Mm-hmm. And, but yes, it's, we live in a day and age where I believe, when you open up the Bible and you look in the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation and you see what's going on in the world we live in, just as the Bible says, there's no inaccuracies in the Bible. And we're living in the end days, and I believe that personally, it's more. It's so important that I want is, as much as I love competing, as much as I love the Bass Tour. It's like I was just telling in one of the last church services. All those championships would be incredible. Being maybe known as somebody that won more Bassmasters Classics than anybody, or whatever the accolade is. All those are great and awesome and cool, but at the end of the day, when we take our last breath, we're going to be facing judgment. And, God, I believe, puts all of us here on this earth for a purpose, to go glorify and magnify his kingdom, just like God's word says. So I'm putting my foot on the floorboard, if you will, trying to take advantage of every opportunity to go share the gospel of, where Jesus Christ died on the cross for our sins. And because of that, we can have eternal life, and we don't have to, face a place called hell, And
the thing is, when you're, because I've seen the videos, you're on the stage, and these young kids are looking at you. You go to schools a lot and
yes.
churches. Just looking at you, I would think, is inspiring these folks. And then you're giving them good news and positivity, and telling them that, look at me. I'm a success. I'm a father. I'm a grandfather. I'm a pro fisherman. I'm a guy. I can swim. And I can do things that able-bodied people can do. So I think that's part of the ministry too, just uplifting them.
Oh, absolutely.
See what you're
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Go ahead, hon.
Yeah.
Well,
I was just agreeing with Rick. I mean, absolutely.
I was in that same vein. Did you ever have a why me moment? Even going back to when you're 7, 8, 9 years old, and or even 4, 5, 6, when you realize that you're different from other kids?
I didn't, and that's all glory to God. I know there could have been times where I could have blamed God or gotten aggravated and, said, why me, poor pitiful me. But I've always believed from early on that, like, when I looked in the mirror at myself, I was like, I've got an opportunity to be, and even then I didn't know who David and Goliath was, but I was like, I've got an opportunity to be David. So I try to not look at where some people may be going through life, and when they face adversity, excuse me, they say maybe, oh my goodness, I don't know how I'm going to handle this. I've always looked at it with an attitude of, you know what, I've got an opportunity to slay a giant. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I've always looked at it as in an opportunity to take out a giant, not let a giant take me out.
What a great mentality
That's a
for
great
everybody.
That's
For everybody.
That's a great
to
line.
have.
I want to run through a wall right now.
Yeah, me too.
I'm serious. I'm ready
Me
to.
too.
You
Me
know,
too.
that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Hey, tell us about your retreat that you're doing and how it came apart. You found this parcel of land up near Fayetteville, and you're giving back. And has it always been a dream? And where do you stand right now on all that?
It's I'm gonna let my beautiful bride here take this, and I'll get a sip of water, and I'll come in. Go ahead.
Yeah. First off, he didn't want to call it the Clay Dyer Foundation. He was very Clay is, you know, an humble person, and he said, I don't want people to think that I'm promoting me. And I said, well, let's talk about this, because he tells the joke. He's probably told me no, 3 times in our marriage. So
Wait, what were those 3 times?
the first time I will never forget, it was because I was about to hit order on a tanning bed. His mom had skin cancer. He had skin cancer. And so he was like,
Hard no.
can we not, do that? Well, I had, everybody went through that phase.
Yeah.
You go to the tanning beds. The second time, it might have been a very expensive purse. I don't remember.
The hard no came when she said, we're going to name the foundation the Clay Dyer Foundation.
Okay.
And I said, no, we're not.
Yeah, that was, probably not that. That was a very hard no. Just no. And I said, wait, let me explain, let the family explain. And, we go a lot of places. Clay's been really, he's spoken internationally. And I've been on the borders with him, but I'm a chicken when it comes to flying. So, anyway, the foundation was a hope and dream several years ago, but it seemed it wouldn't get off the ground and fly. So, post-COVID, God began to speak to both of us again about the foundation. And so I went to Clay and I said, okay, the family has talked and we have a name and we want to call it the Clay Dyer Foundation. We have a vision of wanting to look for land, people that don't have a place to go and take a respite. And they're in need. Let's just say that you were so tired and physically exhausted, mentally exhausted because you'd been a caregiver, okay? But you couldn't afford to take that 2 days or that 3 days away. Clay and I were like, there's got to be a place. It wasn't a week, Rick. I mean, I think you were down during
a phone call.
I love this idea so
it
much.
was not a week. And we looked at this land. God put a couple in our path. Everything, that's a whole nother podcast, but everything fell into place. And you fast forward. We lived in a house for a little bit. 6 months?
Right at 7 months.
We built that. That's for those of you who don't know, that's a shop house. So it's half apartment and half his shop. So we live there while our barndominium is being built. So now we have our main home. Now we're able to bring in, after a big screening process of folks that maybe need some extra TLC or they're just really down. Or even here recently, we had some friends that needed a place to be just while their house was getting ready. So we just simply, people say, what is the foundation? What is your goal? There's so many people giving so much that they're just spent. And we want to be a small part of giving back. So you come out to this 15 and a half acres. We have 15 and a half, our son and daughter-in-law, and they have 15 and a half, and we're together. And so you're able to be out there, be with God, be with nature. And the pond's about to be expanded, and you'll be fishing soon with Clay Dyer, Rick.
That'd be awesome.
Or deer hunting or turkey.
Wait, hold on. Did you guys go fishing together?
Yeah.
Who caught a fish first?
I don't think I caught anything. It was the middle of the day. The conditions weren't great. That was,
Is that your
was hot
excuse?
that was
day.
well, it was my fault because I didn't get up there earlier.
It was about 112 degrees.
Yeah,
12 degrees. I didn't do him any favors with the time of day.
Clay, what is your signature skill when it comes to fishing? Like what makes you different from the other guys?
From the other guys,
Other than reeling in the fish with his mouth.
Well,
I
I'm serious. I'm serious. Just when it comes to like bot. Hey, man, the results at the end of the day, they don't show that you.
Yeah, right. They don't care.
You know, yeah. It's.
I have to say, I feel like one of my strengths, and I mean this with complete humility, because we have got. I'll say this: our son and I, Brandon and I. We're both on the opens together. He's on the elites. And we were just talking a while back, actually a couple of months ago, about how we think now it's actually harder to win at the open level than it is the elite level because of the different age groups of anglers and the way they mix it all up. So that being said, I've always felt like one of my strong suits is the mentality, the attitude, because a lot of fishermen that I've been around, it's easy to go out there when it's what I call Chamber of Commerce weather. When it's 65, 70, sunshine, a little breeze blowing, anybody can go. But on those days when you wake up, and it's like me and my wife affectionately say, when you have to put your big boy drawers on, when it's freezing cold outside, or it's burning up hot, or it's, the conditions are very negative outside. When you got to go out on days like today, on those days like that, and focus and lock in for 8 or 9 hours at a time. I remember an NFL football player that fished with me one time for about 3 hours. I was actually telling him how much I admired, having to be an NFL player and all that. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and he said, brother, I got to tell you something. He said, I see where you're coming from, but he said, most people ain't got a clue what it's like to be locked in mentally and physically for 9 or 10 hours a day, from waking up at 4 in the morning to starting blast off at 6, going to 4 in the afternoon as hard as you can go all day, and then coming in, and it's not like you just come in and, you've still got stuff to do to get ready for the next day. So that being said, I feel like it's the mentality side that maybe that I've got an edge when the weather's not that great. And I'll be honest, when some guys go out there and they practice maybe 3 or 4 days and they're not really on anything, it's real easy to say, you know what, this is awful, this is terrible, and I dread going out here. Honestly, some of my best events has happened when at the start of the event, my wife said, baby, what's the game plan? I'd say, we're going fishing.
Bring it, right?
Yes, you have certain areas that you think after those 3 or 4 days that the conditions are better or are right in these areas. But my best tournaments I've ever had, honestly, are putting it together, as the tournament goes on, But
my final question, Rick, do you have a fish story of the big one that got away?
There's several of those, I bet.
Unfortunately, yeah, several of them. Probably, actually, wasn't even my fish, but one of my fish stories that I remember very, very vividly. Me and a gentleman from South Carolina, Daryl Rogers, this was before we roomed together on tour. I drew him at Lake St. Clair up in Michigan, and little did I know, I drew him the second day of the tournament, and little did I know he was leading or in second place. And he was inside the top 10. So we go out there that day, and it's windy and it's rough, and he hooks this big smallmouth on a long cast on a jerkbait. And I see how big it is, and I'm like, dude, you get him up here and I'll dip him. To make a long story short, after he gets it up there and it jumps already like 5 or 6 times and it stays on, which was a miracle. He gets it up there, and I get the dip net, and I'm laying over the gunwale of the boat in like 6-foot waves, and I'm trying to scoop this smallmouth up for him. But as it jumps, as I go to scoop it, I got it in the net, and when I went to raise up, my hand slipped on the boat and caused me to kind of go down and hit the gunwale with my chest, which caused the net to go down in the water. And the fish ended up flopping out of the net and tore the hook out of its mouth, and it was a giant. And I got up, and I was so aggravated at myself because he was a great guy. And I did not want my mishap to keep him from winning because he had a shot to win. And I remember I got up and I grabbed the dip net, and I'm not like this. I grabbed it and I slammed it in the floorboard of the boat. And I looked at him and I said, brother, I'm sorry, dude. He looked at me and he goes, for what? And I was like, if that fish getting off costs you winning this tournament, I'm going to be sick. And believe it or not, that sparked a really good friendship, and we don't get to see each other often. We've been really good friends ever since.
That is one of the best stories I've heard in a long time. Awesome. If I was writing a 5,000 word piece on you, that's my lead.
There's your lead, and you bring it around to the end. Speaking of the end, before we go, you're so inspirational to all of us, you and your wife. But is there a message out there you can give us? Look, what's the saying? They say everything's perfect on Facebook. We all, our lives are beautiful, and we're all beautiful people. And look, we've all got our issues, whether it's health, whether it's family, whether the challenges in life. What do you tell people looking for an answer, or maybe a positivity or something that can turn it around? And I know there's a general phrase that you use.
Right.
Like if you can do it, right? Tell us about that and what message you might bring to everybody going forward.
My wife and I both can tell you in life you're going to, just because it's life. I tell folks I'm real. I mean, for instance, when you look in the Bible, God never said it would always be easy. But, he did say he would never leave us or forsake us. And he always gives us strength to work through, or wisdom to work through the tough times, to help us be victorious. And what I tell folks all the time is you're looking at living proof of the saying you were saying, which I say, if I can do it, you can do it. And you're looking at living proof of... There's
the line, right, by the way. If I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
But I want people to understand that whatever you may be, whatever obstacle or whatever adversity that you may be dealing with in life, just know and trust that if you believe and you have the faith and you don't give up. So many people give up and they throw in the towel. And a very good friend of mine asked me one time, why do I still compete, when I haven't won a national level, top level tournament? I looked right at him and I said, I'm going to tell you two things, buddy. I said, quitters never win and winners never quit. But I looked right at him. I said, dude, quitting's easy. Yeah. And, anybody can quit because it's easy. But to not quit and to not give up during those tough times makes that victory and that reward even sweeter, to me.
Yeah. Do not quit. Do not give up. And
beautiful words.
Great message.
That one right there, she ain't a quitter. She's a go-getter.
All right. So now you're going to go get a cup of coffee. You've been looking for. Clay and Kim, thank you. Appreciate you. All right.
Yes, sir.
As we say in the South, bless your hearts.
Yes.
We'll come fishing soon.
Come on, brother. Well, I'm waiting on you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank y'all.